Good morning, and thank you all for coming to this day of thinking differently. Let's start it with a little bit of good news, and Tom started with a share there. The thing is that we all have the capacity to be curious. We all have the capacity to be curious, but many of us have not built the skill to be curious. We haven't developed the ability to be curious. And that is the wicked challenge that we at Say Hi to the Future are working on. More specifically, as learning and development people, what we try to do, or what we are aiming to do, is to resolve the gap between potential and the skill set required to resolve wicked challenges. Now, Tom mentioned a little bit about education and how it's behind and how it's not this or that, but let's take a deep breath. Because when I look at the education system and I think about the individuals who created it during the Industrial Revolution, they were actually quite ingenious. I mean, think about it. Very linear. And what was the MO back then? It was build it and they will come. Make it, we will sell it. Henry Ford Motor Company used to say the customer can have any car that they want as long as it's black and has no options. This is why our education system, or what it was developed for. Okay, so it's changing. What we need to do now, it's not build a layer cake. It's not like take the linear thinking of the past and just build on the nonlinear thinking. What we do is we like to smush it together. You know the Venn diagram? One circle, another circle in the middle. Well, for us, that is the point where things come together, where you can toggle back and forth between the linear thinking of the past and the nonlinear thinking of curiosity, of imagination, of creativity. Because those are the skills, or as we say, thinking differently, those are the skills required for the world that we're in. But again, let's not knock the past, and let's not forget that it's still critical today, the linear thinking. I got to tell you, if I'm in the hospital and a nurse is coming in to give me my medication, I don't want her or him to be creative. I want them to give me the dose that they're supposed to, not double it to see what's going to happen to Ken. We need to bring them both together and understand the best fit. But before we go too far, what is a wicked problem anyway? And I know a lot of people in this audience, and they might say a wicked problem is having teenagers. I'm with that, but that's not the example we're going to use today. Wicked problems are problems with no solution. They have incomplete information or changing information. So you cannot solve them, but you can resolve a wicked problem. You can understand where all the elements are at today and come up with a resolution that works for the moment. And let me get more granular with this. And we're going to go to HR. What is a simple problem? A simple problem is my accountant quits. I need a new accountant. I have a job description. I understand the skills. I put the ad out. I rehire. Boom. Input in, hire out. Simple problem. Complex problem. Still sticking with HR. Somebody invents the internet. What does that mean? Programmers, coders, security? All of a sudden, our HR department has to change. It has to go from 10 people to whatever number, but it has to incorporate new individuals with the skill sets relevant to this major change. But when the change has been made, the hiring process again becomes simple. So complex, it may keep you up at night, it may be irritating, I get it, but it is still something that eventually can be solved. A wicked problem, once again with HR. Everybody's getting older. Kids want to work hybrid. We had a pandemic. It changed the way we think about work and work-life balance. Those are wicked challenges because now in HR, we have to think about aging population, changing dynamics of who is going to school and who is not going to school, where they want to live. What happens when a bank CEO says everybody has to come back to work and nobody wants to and leaves? Those are very real issues, and you can't solve them because they're always going to be changing a little bit. We're always going to be getting a little older or younger, whatever, and we have to find that clear resolution to it, something we can work with today. And again, that is the wicked challenge. Now, I want to show you 3 individuals from our community. They've been on the Ingenious Thinkers podcast. And they really show what we believe in or what we want to really engender at Say Hi to the Future. And that is the ability, again, to resolve wicked challenges. And why these 3 people are so remarkable is they remind me of my favorite saying in the world. There are no brick walls, there are only sledgehammers. There are no brick walls, there are only sledgehammers, and we have to figure out if we want to pick it up and break things down, because that's what it takes with a wicked challenge. Now let's look at these 3 individuals. And we've got the episodes of Ingenious Thinkers up there if you want to listen to the full interview. On the left, Shabita Soor, nutritional benefits of palm larvae of insects. Now, Shabita was a student at McGill University at the time, and a friend of hers phoned up and said, hey, there's a competition on. It's a business competition, but it's all focused on food insecurity. Do you want to come in with me? She says, sure. What they come up with is a deep dive into insects as a source of protein. And yes, in North America, we might have a bit of the cringe factor, but in many parts of the world, it's already recognized and worked into our food groups. But what they wanted to do was make it accessible to everybody in a form that they could easily put into their food. What did Shabita do? McGill University, lives and grows up in Montreal. She moves to Ghana. Why? Because she is so passionate about it. 2, because there is an understanding of insect larvae as a protein. And 3, through her company, Legendary Foods, she now creates powders and condiments and biscuits, things that a country like Ghana, where 2/3 of the individuals suffer from food insecurity, now have an affordable option. Number 2, Bronwyn Bridges, how Pragmaclin is transforming neurological care. So I'm sure we all did this during the pandemic. We were finishing, as Bronwyn was her doctorate in pharmacology and Parkinson's, and she had a lot of time to think at home. She phoned somebody she knew, an elderly gentleman who was suffering from Parkinson's. And together, as I said, during the pandemic, they started to create something called PRISMs, which is a technology-driven way for the medical system to test and analyze and monitor Parkinson's disease in their patients. It was faster, it was easier, and it created a more of an institutional story if you're going from doctor to doctor or if you're revisiting it over time. Bronwyn, Memorial University, gets her doctorate, decides, let's show this to the world. So she goes into an international competition for university students in Asia. She places number 1. From her table at COVID, during COVID, being bored, caring so much about Parkinson's, she takes this idea and becomes the number 1 idea in the world to come out of a university, any university. and since then has obviously been funded and has taken off. Pretty good for COVID boredom. Haley Amiasu. Haley, University of Montana, doing her doctorate in forensics and molecular biology. Haley is Indigenous, and she really cares about missing individuals. She cares about the fact that it takes many more time, much more time to even get on the case of a missing Indigenous person than it does a non-Indigenous person. And she took up forensics because she wanted to help to rectify this challenge. And I said to her, so how do you take your doctorate and your lab time into your own business? She said, it happened sort of because it had to. She said, I went out there and none of the labs that I saw were focused on this problem. Nobody was focused on helping the Indigenous community to find their missing. So she said, I created my own. I created my own. A student who says it just has to be. No brick walls, only sledgehammers. And what we're seeing here is so critical because, again, as Tom mentioned, passion to solve the wicked challenge, savage curiosity, and the audacity to make a difference. They have it. The community members have it. And I believe that everybody in this room has that capacity as well. Not just to be curious, but to find things that we are passionate about and to make a difference. So, we're going to try a couple of challenges today, and Tom's going to introduce you to the Catalyst game a little later, give directions then, but I wanted to introduce you and get you started to think on the two challenges that we're going to be using today, and you'll be able to choose and go to the tables that you want according to challenge. The first one, college and university applicants, nearly 60% female. 60% female in many major universities, actually many, it's up to or over 70%. So what does that mean for the future of leadership? How does that change who we are, what we are, who we're bringing in, how we're developing them? And there's another question, a corollary, which is not on the screen, and I don't want to address today, but I got to put it out there. What the hell is wrong with guys? No, sir, we're in the knowledge community, so what are guys doing? Not going to school. Last year, we had a panel called The Future of Leadership is Female. Apparently it is. Guys, wake up. That's not part of today, sorry. Just had to add it. Challenge number 2, it's often said we do not inherit our world from the prior generation. We merely borrow it from the next. That's pretty cool because that flips how we look at our world and how we think about things. Because now I'm thinking about what am I doing that impacts my children or future generations of children. I'm not caught up in myself and what my parents or our generations before us did or should have done. I'm thinking about the future. But you know, what does that really mean? And is there a pragmatic way to keep score and communicate it to finally affect change? And we can be looking at climate, education, community, political systems. It's a wicked challenge. When we get to the time, have at it and enjoy the discussion. I also wanted to share with you the anatomy of better thinking, better outcomes. And that's really critical to me. Those are like the most important words for me, and I started using them years ago as the first and second books came out. This is not theater. I know that the single greatest keynote in the world, whoever that person may be, the half-life of that and any other keynote is less than 2 aspirin. The reality is that whether we are doing a keynote, working together for an hour, we over time will quickly forget the information we've learned. So moving from curiosity to ability, moving from potential to skill set is not about an hour. So we created a community where hundreds of people from around the world, all 7 continents, share their ideas, and that is growing weekly. We obviously have events. We also use something out of Australia called the I Am assessment. It's about ambiguity, and it specifically measures how comfortable you or your team are with ambiguity and uncertainty. And this is critical. You know, teams are put together. We have a wicked challenge. We have a complex challenge. Let's throw a team together. But we have no idea if they were up to the task. We have no idea if they can think through uncertainty, if they have developed the ability to think through uncertainty. So what this does is it quantifies it in advance of starting to work. And it's not a good or bad score. It's just a score that says, you know what? Here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to work on. So you need to build the skill and the capacity, the ability before you set these teams off. The catalysts you'll be introduced to and high learning and the challenge are further undertakings of deeper dive ways to engage with what we do. Finally, off to the right, iLab, it's grayed out. This is something I've always wanted to do, and it actually, in a very little part of a very big university, there is a research lab, and we are looking to morph it, or it's starting to morph, I've been involved with this since its inception, to iLab, the Ingenuity Lab, looking at the future of business thinking. Say hi to the future is not theater. It is, and it will be based on valid insights, valid research. And it will share those research, not just through the education, but in other ways to read and connect with it. And I share that because that anatomy, again, is so important. 1 hour, 3 hours, it's a wonderful beginning. But if you leave and you are not supported, you will not move from capacity to ability. And that is better thinking, better outcomes. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. And I hope you remember 2 things. The first one is linear thinking is not a bad thing. It just has to be supplemented with some curiosity, some imagination, or as we call it, human ingenuity, clever, inventive, and original thinking. The other thing is that, yes, it has to move from a capacity to an ability, from the potential to the actual skill set that can be applied at work. Or else we're just leaving things up there and not affecting change where we really need it in our day-to-day lives. So thank you so much, and again, I hope you enjoy the day.